Hello everyone, my name is Crichton. Welcome to my hobby blog. Today we are doing something I don't do often, which is a book review. So I have, ever since finishing The Wheel of Time, I have been absolutely off of my habit of reading books. I've read a few books since then. I finished about 10 books since last September, I believe, is when I finished The Wheel of Time, and here we are in mid-May. But one of the books I read and actually reviewed on this channel last year was Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. It really influenced me as a child growing up. I loved the dinosaurs. I'm still a huge dinosaur fan. I haven't read too many other books that involve dinosaurs in such a interesting and non, I guess, combative way. Michael Crichton very much treats the dinosaurs as animals, and that they're not out just to kill people. But I read and reviewed that last year back in the summer. I want to say it was about June, maybe May. So it's been about a year since I've read it. So I finally read the sequel titled The Lost World. And you can see I got it for 50 cents. I have an amazing used bookstore near where I live that has a pretty good trade-in program in regards to trading in your books. So I'm able to constantly filter out and not filter out, but kind of trade in the books that I don't want anymore and be able to get a couple more books than I bought for. So, first and foremost, I just want to get the story out of the way because it's not anything spectacular, in my opinion. It's basically 3 years later or 5 years later after the initial events of Jurassic Park. And Ian Malcolm is supposed to be our main character in this. And he is now teaching at a local college. And he has signed non-disclosure agreements, or NDAs, saying that he will never talk about what happened on the island of Isla Nublar. And during this time, there's another young, hot scientist in the world named Richard Levine. He is not convinced that nothing happened there and that Malcolm just had a medical emergency somewhere else on vacation, is kind of what the story is. And he doesn't believe it at all. And he has been hounding Ian Malcolm for the last few years. He has contacted Ellie, who is in the movie played by Laura Dern. She's gotten married at this point. She has kids. She married a fellow graduate student, I believe. It's been a while since I read the intro to this book because before I go into that, the first half of the book is them kind of preparing to go back to, or not go back, but go and find Site B, where they were going to open a second theme park. No, they weren't opening a second theme park. They were making kind of like a behind-the-scenes park where they would genetically engineer these dinosaurs and then they would sell them to the amusement park. And of course we know that the amusement park, Jurassic Park, did not work out at all. Everybody got murdered. John Hammond got murdered by his own creations, which that's my big nitpick with the movie, is that John Hammond is given a way better story ending than he deserves. He caused the murder of dozens of people, and it was very relieving to see justice for all those murders that he was directly responsible for. But so they have this Site B. It's called Isla something. they mostly just refer to it as Site B throughout the book. But Richard Levine is looking for it. Ian Malcolm is trying to not, you know, give away that he knows of a Site B, or even that he knows that there are dinosaurs living. But Richard Levine really picks up the chase when dead dinosaurs are washing up onto the beaches of Costa Rica. And he is able to finally intercept a corpse before the government comes in and scoops it up. And they actually don't even scoop it up, they just burn it to ash to the point where you can't get any DNA, anything out of it. So there's definitely a shadow organization plot line that's kind of explored in the first half, but he is able to get a strip of flesh from this dead dinosaur, and he sends it off, and he's very sneaky about it in terms of what it is. They tell him, like, we've never seen these type of cells before. The skin is very similar to an alligator, but it's also a little bit of a salamander. Like, what the fuck is this animal that you have? And he's just kind of like, mind your own business, I have it here. And so after that, that's when Ian Malcolm becomes a lot more involved, because this book takes place over a span of 2 years, at least the first half of the book. And Ian Malcolm is convinced to go. Sarah Harding, she is a new character in the series. She is in the second movie. She is the red-headed scientist lady who Ian Malcolm is with. And she, I argue, is more of a main character than Ian Malcolm. Ian Malcolm, we all love because he was played by Jeff Goldblum, who is one of my favorite actors. He's great in most things he's in, even when he's an untitled character in the original Death Wish film. And he's also in a very underrated role in David Cronenberg's The Fly from 1986, I believe. But he is, if not, he is better, in my opinion, than even in the movie. And he's great in the movie. I love him in the movie. He is definitely somebody who I don't know for good cause why I looked up to him, but I did a little bit more than Dr. Grant, Alan Grant, who was played by Sam Neill. He was obviously more anti-children than Ian Malcolm. Ian Malcolm was a lot more encouraging of the interest in dinosaurs, although he was like, what the fuck, you should not be doing this. This is awful. And he, in this book, does not really have any story arcs, or even, he doesn't really have a character in this book. Very few of these characters do. You get to know Dodgson, who, if you remember, he was the sneaky guy who worked for Engine, which was the competitor of Richard Hammond's, or John Hammond's company. And he's the guy in the beginning of Jurassic Park 1, where Nedry is eating at Costa Rica. He's having a big meal. He's ordering, lots of great food. And Dodgson comes up and he has the suitcase and he has the sunglasses on. And he's like, Nedry, you're supposed to be a little bit more incognito. And he says, and Nedry hilariously goes, we have a dachshund here. We have a dachshund here. See, no one gives a shit. That's the line. I kind of spiced it up with he doesn't give a shit, but no one cares. And he's that character. He's not Nedry. He's the guy Nedry is talking to. He is involved, and he is kind of, for some reason, trying to harvest remaining dinosaur embryos. So it's basically Nedry's plot line from the original book and movie, but this time with Dodgson. And Dodgson's a lot less lovable as Nedry. Nedry in the books was a character who I enjoyed a lot more than the movies. He's just kind of that guy in the movie. Very incompetent. Shocking that they even hired him. He's one of the leading software engineers in the book. And in the movie, he's just some guy. They don't really give him any background. And it's another very slight nitpick that I have. Not as big as the death of John Hammond, but definitely a nitpick. But he somehow, just through the use of the pattern, I guess, to make a Wheel of Time reference, he runs into Sarah Harding about halfway through the book because the first half is them getting to the island. And he pairs up with Sarah Harding, who she's actually looking for Ian Malcolm. They are friends. They are professional companions in the fields, and they get along well. Dodgson is pretending to get along well with Sarah Harding, and she doesn't know him. He pretends to be somebody else, and he tries to murder her by pushing her off the boat as they're approaching the island. And so, with that in mind, we have to take a step back, and because the big draw for Jurassic Park is the involvement of the children of Tim and Lex, or Alexis, I believe, but it's Tim Murphy and Lex Murphy. They are not even mentioned in this book. That is one thing that the movie kind of addresses in the second one, where they're kind of like, oh, they grew up. They want nothing to do with this. They were paid handsomely for the silence. And there's a quick cameo, which I haven't actually ever spotted, because I find that the second movie is so boring and I don't like it really at all. But they are not mentioned in this book really at all. I can't even remember if they're mentioned. But we have two new kids in this book. One of them is named Arby. He's a black kid who is really scientifically minded. He loves computers. He is always mocked for how smart he is. He is bullied. We get some great chapters in the beginning that really build the character. And we also have, oh my gosh, what's her name? Oh, I just finished the book like tonight. I'm gonna have to look, but Kelly, that's her name. Her name is Kelly. She's the older classmate of Arby. Arby is, I think, 9 years old. Kelly is 11 or 12. And she's basically Lex, and Arby is basically Tim. And I did not really care for the kids. I really enjoyed the opening chapters where we got to know them, got to know the family situations, about why they would want to just abandon their family without even saying anything, to go to a random island in the middle of the ocean, 1,000, 2,000 miles away from the home, to stick with these adults. And obviously, the adults don't want them there. We get a couple scenes of Ian Malcolm, a guy named see, that's the issue I have with this book, is that none of the characters are memorable. I can't even remember their names, and I just read it. But we have scenes of Ian Malcolm with a different character who is fine. He has no way to differentiate between any other character. I mean, his name is Eddie. That's his name. Eddie I kept confusing with Arby, and it was throwing me off because there was scenes where Eddie was attacked by dinosaurs. And I was like, oh my god, Michael Crichton is killing a kid off in his book. Oh my god, this is so dour. And then I was like, oh wait, Eddie's the scientific assistant of Richard Levine. But we have a couple scenes of all three of them, along with Ian, kind of talking to the kids like, hey, like, you can't really just go with us. Like, we're not your guardians. We're not your parents. And you got to go home to your parents. And they're like, oh, gosh, gosh, guys, I'll do that, and they just sneak into the car. And it's fine. I don't really care for the kids in this book. Uh, Tim and Lex, at least, was somewhat interesting because they weren't a copy and paste of different characters from a previous entry in the books. But for the second half of the book, it's them doing something on the island. I don't even know why they were there. Richard Levine does leave earlier than the rest of them to go onto the island immediately, and he's trapped there, and he is able to get one radio message to Ian and Eddie, and he's like, "Hey, come to the island as soon as possible. I am trapped." And so they show up, and they just keep getting caught in conflicts that require them to have to reason their way out. It's just fine. That's the issue I have with this book, is that it doesn't need to exist, in my opinion. I really love the first book and love the movie even more, but this did not need to exist. And one thing that should be noted is the history of the series, of the book series at least, because Jurassic Park 1 came out in 1989, maybe 1990, because the movie, Steven Spielberg had read Jurassic Park and was completely blown away by it and was like, I want to make that movie. And so within the year, they were able to contract with the author, and the author actually had a pretty major part with the screenwriting, from what I understand of the behind the scenes that are on the Blu-ray box set that I have. And with how big Jurassic Park became, I mean, it's one of the biggest movies of all time in terms of the box office that it made. But after that, the studio was like, hey, Michael Crichton, write a sequel. And the only thing that he could use as a through line from the original novel was the character of Ian Malcolm. Because at the end of Jurassic Park, the book, the entire island is basically nuked. They come in with aircraft and they just bomb the hell out of this island. And they can't find Ian. They were unable to find him, is what the story is. In the book, it's just kind of like, oh, I guess he died in the fiery blaze. And Michael Crichton was like, we technically never saw the body, so I'm bringing him back. And so he brought Ian Malcolm back and was like, I guess there's a site B. He was like, there's not much I can do with this. I mean, he's pretty frank about this in the behind the scenes that I remember watching way back in the day on Blockbuster VHS. That's how long ago it's been since I've seen the behind the scenes of The Lost World. But I remember him talking about how that was really the only way that he could continue the story. He did not want to write this book. And there were many sequences throughout this book where I really felt like he was just bored, just out of his mind, because we have the famous scene from the second movie, which I don't like the second movie at all. It is very lacking in any creativity or even any, there's just no want of, making the movie. It seemed like nobody there wanted to make the second movie. And Michael Crichton, just to kind of circle back to that, he somehow finagled in his contract when writing the second book. He somehow was able to get Steven Spielberg to be required to be the director for the second movie because they wanted to make a second movie. They commissioned him, and he was like, I'll only write it if Steven Spielberg directs it, because I guess he had a thought that Steven Spielberg would be excited again to make a second movie. And shockingly, this is something that not many people realize, is that Spielberg does not do sequels. He has no interest in doing a sequel. He wraps it up very nicely in a way that it can never be continued. And this is something that I completely agree with him on, because the movie sucks as bad as the book, if not more so, actually. The book is a little better. The book is more just devoid of any purpose. The movie is a little awful. That's really the only way to describe it. But Steven Spielberg agreed because they wanted to make all the money in the world again. It didn't make as much money as the original one, of course, but it still made a profit. So they made a lot of money on that. And then they tried to get Michael Crichton to come back and do a third book, and he said, fuck no, I am not doing a third one. Do whatever you want. And so you get the really bizarre, so bad that it's good in terms of, I wouldn't say the quality. The movie's awful, but it's so bad that it's funny. And that's why I like the third one. And plus, we get the actually interesting dinosaur. Because we have the famous scene, which I was starting to describe, but went off on a tangent. The famous sequence in the second movie are the two Tyrannosaurus Rexes rescuing the baby. And it is completely lifted from the book, and that's really it. That's really it from the book that is used in the movie. And so I am actually kind of excited to dive back into the series because I plan on doing a ranking of the movies. And I do want to watch the new ones. I've only seen Jurassic World like twice, once in theaters, once on home video, and I said, I hate this movie. It shouldn't exist. And then I saw that Fallen Kingdom, I think is the name of the fifth movie. Fallen Kingdom, I heard was awful, but it was described as a slasher film. And I said, oh my god, they are going crazy with this movies. And during the time of this recording, it is May 12th, 2022. As of this recording, we have gotten a trailer, I believe, of the next Jurassic Park movie, or Jurassic World, because I don't want it to be related to the originals, at least the original film. But we have a trailer, and we've known now for about 3 years now, since before COVID, that Ian Malcolm is in the movie. We have Sam Neill. We have Laura Dern. We have, I think even the kids are coming back. So they're dredging up everybody to try and make this movie somewhat successful. And they're going to be successful and just making money. But I have a good feeling that the movie's going to suck. And it doesn't matter if you bring out elderly actors from 40 years ago. Well, I guess it was 30 years ago. So they're not quite elderly, but they all have gray hair. They do not need to be adventuring around and doing the same thing they've been doing 30 years ago. This is a complaint I have with these reboot slash soft, I guess soft reboot is the term. But this is something I'm not looking forward to in the newest movie, but you know, I think it'll be good to at least watch it just for my sick pleasure of seeing how bad it can be. Maybe I'll even see it in the theater and be a contributor to them doing another trilogy. But we'll see. I did not really care for this book at all, just to kind of give closing thoughts. It's just a retread of the original book. The original book was just so well done. And the ending to this book was kind of awful. It just ended on a whim. Again, Michael Crichton did not want to write this book, and he wrapped it up. He ended it so fucking fast. And I don't blame him. I don't blame him at all. I am happy he never made a third book. I think he's still living. He was like in his 60s, I believe. Late 50s when they were making the Jurassic Park film, the original one. So I think he's done, like, writing in general. Let him enjoy his retirement. I am happy they never made a third book. I don't need a third book. The second one's bad enough. But huh. Okay, so that is it for this review. I did not think I would be talking this long, but I had a lot more thoughts than I thought I would. So thank you all so much for watching, and please don't forget to like, favorite, or like, comment your thoughts about the books, and also make sure to subscribe to my channel. My channel has been blowing up in terms of views, but my subscriber count is barely growing. So if you like what I have to say and like my reviews, please subscribe. I regularly upload videos, so it just keeps coming. It's like a sprinkler. It just keeps going. So thank you all so much again for watching, and have a great rest of the night.